this, we will take questions by members of the press. Please just raise your hand or go in the Q&A box. Identify yourself, the publication you're with, and who your question is directed to. We are going Facebook Live. There is a delay of about 16 seconds. So again, I just want to thank those of you, the members of the press, for joining us. Before I turn it over to members of our industry, there are some things that I want to address. And one is the issue of how the restaurant industry is being portrayed as super spreaders. That is without basis, and it is demeaning to the men and women who work and make a living in the hospitality industry. An often cited case study is from Wuhan, China, where 6 people contracted COVID-19 while dining in a restaurant. There are no other facts to this study. Of the 6 people, 4 lived in the same household. The restaurant was old and without ventilation, and it happened early on in the pandemic before the best practices were established. The CDC has admitted that there is no scientific evidence that states that restaurants are super spreaders. We know that social distancing, mask wearing are key components in stopping the spread of the virus, which is why we have been at the forefront of recommending and encouraging these and other practices as part of our safe dining plan. In fact, we recently updated our plan and resubmitted it to the governor's office. 2 additions that we included would be that all guests must be seated while eating and drinking, and that there will be no bar seating permitted. As we look at other states in the region that have opened and have not experienced a spike in infections, such as Connecticut, while in New Jersey, our numbers are encouraging despite a recent rise in the RT rate. Well, this can't be blamed on restaurants. What is causing this is exactly what the governor's been stated in his recent press conferences: the indoor house parties. Our restaurants are certainly safer than house parties where these celebrations are occurring because restaurants and banquet halls are not open. The other reason is other activities are permitted. Religious services, like going to church and singing, riding the bus, and other mass transit. Both of these are sedentary and offer poor ventilation while sitting next to strangers. It angers me that when I hear people say that going to a restaurant is not a necessity. Well, for the small business owner, his family, and employees, it most certainly is. On July 2nd, indoor dining was supposed to be allowed, but within 72 hours, our governor decided to hit the pause button, creating a huge financial impact on an already devastated industry. We appreciate the recent bipartisan legislation that will allow restaurants to be reimbursed for the expenses that they incurred, such as ordering food, sanitizing their restaurants, and training employees for the new sanitation protocols. And we certainly hope the governor will sign it. The governor's managing of the CARES dollars has only spent 2.1% of the funds, so it should make the decision to reimburse the small business owners that much easier. I am confused by the inequity of how businesses are reopened. You can go shopping at a big box store where there's no social distancing and people are touching merchandise and putting it down. You can ride on an airplane, but you can't go to dinner or eat in a restaurant with your family where social distancing of tables and sanitation protocols are in place. The reality is it's summer and people are here, but they don't have anywhere to go. So they're moving their socialization indoors to places that don't have these sanitation protocols. This has not just had an impact on business owners, but employees as well. The hospitality industry is the state's largest private sector employer, with a large number of restaurants not opened or just open for outdoor. These employees remain unemployed. Of the 85% of restaurant employees that were laid off or furloughed back in March, only 23% of those are back to work. According to Local 54 down in Atlantic City, if indoor dining was to resume at just 25%, it would mean over 3,000 employees would return to work in Atlantic City alone. The unknown of when indoor dining will occur isn't just a financial one, but a mental one. Unfortunately, last week I heard from a member where 3 employees overdosed on drugs. Whether this is due to previous addiction illnesses or the stress of not working, their deaths are no less tragic. And this is just one example of what is happening around the state. The NJRHA, on behalf of its members, will start a 30-day awareness campaign called I Serve Jersey. This will include short videos of restaurateurs and their experiences and challenges during the shutdown. We will also organize a series of meetings around the state and ask for state and local elected officials to join us in hearing what is happening to the restaurant industry and their employees. As of now, we estimate that 30% of restaurants will not reopen in our state, and that number goes up every day. This has far-reaching implications both on their communities in which they do their business, the employees that they employ, and the local nonprofits that they support. And you're going to hear some of these stories shortly. Again, I want to thank you for joining us today for discussing how the state's largest private sector employer needs to get back open and how we can do it safely. I'm going to turn it over now to the 2020 NJRHA Chairwoman, Marilyn Schlossbeck of Langosta Lounge. Marilyn?
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I want to begin with how my 2020 platform is being tested immediately in this pandemic. So I chose a platform of the 3 pillars of sustainability. That is economic, social, and environmental. And as we have moved through the last few months of our business, this has changed exponentially. I want to commend the governor on the diligence taken keeping the residents of our Garden State safe. And I understand being reactionary is inevitable in something like this, but more importantly, we need long-term planning. The anxiety caused by the unknown is going to have long-term effects on us, both economically and emotionally. And it affects the stability of not only small business, but our employees and our communities. The well-being of our staff and my people that I work with in my Asbury Park and surrounding areas is of paramount concern to me in my business. We have daily wake-up calls to weather, historic heat waves, environmental shifts, hurricane season starting early. These add to all the day-to-day operations that we have to do normally. And in the outside dining world, this has totally shifted us. So what I want to do is implore all of us to look for solutions for the coming fall and winter months, long-term solutions. The importance of small business and the fabric that we weave in our communities can't even be measured in metrics. The passion we have to bring people together as human necessity for connection is what we do, and it needs to be protected. I didn't get into this business to do takeout. I got into this business to create memories. And if I can't do that, my passion is quenched through giving. And I don't know what I'm gonna do as a restaurateur and how I'm gonna move forward in this. When people ask me what scares me about today, I say, it's not about today. My purpose is my being in the industry and my future, and how that's gonna be supported by my federal and local government and my community, and how we can do it together. We're all tired, we're all scared, we need each other. My team and I have been delivering meals since March, thousands of meals for Fulfill and AP Dinner Table. That's what keeps us motivated. That's what creates the passion of what I do as a restaurateur. It's not about the money, it's not about the pandemic, it's about people. And it's about bringing people together. And if we can't communicate and do that across party lines, across everything, we won't survive this. We need to work as a team, both small business, leadership, and our staff and communities. I want to leave you with a couple questions that I want you to ponder. First, how far will the winter set us back? How many of us will survive this? And what can we do to help us all come out on the other side? Two, as Mary Lou said, why is the party scene and the bar scene affecting the control that we have on sit-down table dining? They are two separate categories. apples and oranges, and we need to separate that situation. We are in a business that creates sanitary hospitality, controlled hospitality. We can do that in venues, we can do it in restaurants. And three, as I said about my platform, we saw how quickly the environment came back to life. Places that we hadn't seen fish in Italy, in streams in Venice, just going outside and seeing the stars every night. The pollution decreased during the shutdown. Now we are taking major setbacks in the PPE and the takeout packaging that we're consuming. And I know it's on the bottom of the list, but it's going to come back on the list at some point, and we need to think about that. I want you all to have a wonderful day. It's sunny. A storm is brewing. It's going to shift us all and give us major anxiety for the rest of the week. Not only the owners of the businesses, but the employees who depend on us to carry them through and show them that we are strong. It's hard to do that when we have all these challenges, but let's really, really, really try and work together to accomplish our goals. Namaste in the restaurant business.
All right, it's on mute. Thank you, Marilyn. Those are very pointed words about coming together. Next up is former chairwoman Jeannie Curtel of Landmark Hospitality. Jeannie?
Good morning, everyone. So I'm president of Landmark Hospitality. We've been in business now for about 20 years. My husband and I started our business when we opened up our first restaurant in New Jersey, the Liberty House. Today, I'm proud to say that like many hospitality companies, we truly are a family generational business because our daughter Maddie is now with us. You know, in March, we employed about 600 full-time employees, and gearing up for our season, which really starts in May, we fully expected that we would surpass the number of employees that we had in 2019 and that we would hit the 1,000 mark because of so many new venues that we were about to open. I know everyone recognizes how devastating COVID-19 has been to the hospitality industry. But like Marilyn said, we do so much more than serve food and liquor. We help our communities in times of need. Typically, it's always our industry that pulls together when when communities are in need. At Landmark, we did start, when we first opened, a corporate giving program called HUG, which stands for Help Us Give, which has served communities where all of our businesses are located, and it's been recognized both on a local and national level. Last year, we decided that it was really time for us to formalize a program that would allow our employees to formally reach their fullest potential and have a strategic plan for advancement, as well as to have a program in place for those that were unemployed and underemployed and wanted to get into the hospitality industry. We set up a non-for-profit school in Plainfield, Art of Hospitality Workers Alliance, which formally assists with supporting both the needs and the dreams of hospitality workers. Our programs are not unique. They're a drop in the bucket to what many have done in this industry. What's important to remember is that we can't let this industry fail. We are the cornerstones of all of your communities. We are the largest job creators in the state. We give opportunities to the underserved, and we offer endless opportunities for anyone who's dedicated and hardworking. In addition to this, we help to support a tremendous amount of other businesses as well as our vendors. So the good news is that restaurants have been able to be open since June for outdoor dining, but there are challenges with outdoor dining. The obvious is weather. The normal New Jersey summer comes with pop-up storms and heat waves, just making it uncomfortable for guests to dine out. And we're now faced with thinking about in the future, as the weather cools down, how do we properly keep guests comfortable without enclosing outdoor spaces and adding heat? All this is coupled with the fact that many restaurants just don't have an outdoor area that allows them to have enough seating to support even their payroll. Lastly, because our inventory is perishable, a change in weather, even with good planning, can mean quite a loss. Venues have been hit the hardest with this pandemic, being forced to close, and the ripple effect of this closure has impacted not only 2020, but 2021. Situation has been an absolute roller coaster for us and all of our clients. All venues are committed to creating the most spectacular day in someone's life, their wedding. But unfortunately, we just don't have answers for people. Through all this, we've tried to be as fair as possible and make the right decisions. But who would have ever thought 5 months after we closed down that we would still be closed? From the onset of the pandemic, as Mary Lou said, we worked diligently on safe reopening plans specific to each segment in the industry. What has been the most important for us always was to create an environment that was safe for both our employees and our guests. And the rise in the number of transmissions is a huge disappointment, but it's also totally frustrating, as much of it is due to people just not following the rules and deciding on their own to host their own events in their homes and backyards where there's no systems in place. Those events should have been in a venue, in a setting where professionals like us have systems in place that would avoid what we've seen. And sanitation practices, well, they've always been at the top of our priority. We understand that there are certain segments in our industry where business model comes with higher risk. But hosting a private wedding for family and friends, or having dinner inside with all precautions in place can provide for a safe environment of celebrating. Allow employees to come back to work, which is desperately needed, and help those cornerstone businesses in your communities that are going through this nightmare. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. I'm now going to turn it over to Bob Wagner. He is the proprietor of Ott's and Braddock's Tavern down in Southwest Jersey. Bob?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking your time to join our call and our cause for restaurants and venues to reopen. Back when we started this, I got into this business. Went out on my own 22 years ago with my partner. You know, we've opened up 4 successful restaurants. We had over 200 people working for us. And now, it used to be a triangle. It was people, sales, and profits, and it's 3 equal sides. Right now, there is no triangle. The triangle's been broken. The 4th side is now obviously COVID. But the problem is people. We need to bring people back to work. We need to get open. The stimulus is gone. Who knows when it's going to come back? We can't play in that political world right now. They're missing $600 a week. We need to get the restaurants open and reopen. But we need a plan. We've given a plan. We've asked for weeks and weeks to have a meeting to get the rules given to us on how we can reopen. The problem is that he keeps changing the rules. And I understand on safety side and wellness side and all that other kind of stuff, but the rules keep changing. We had a failed first attempt on July 2nd. That cost a lot of businesses not to ever reopen probably again. Sales are down over 50% in general. We need to reopen. You know, the things that we do, and like most restaurants do, we're the backbone and the pillars of our community. Just for our golf outing alone, last year we raised $60,000 for breast cancer awareness to stay in Burlington County, Camden County, and Gloucester County. We can't have our golf outing this year. We would have probably raised $65,000, $70,000 this year. We can't do that. All the school teams that are knocking on our doors asking to buy their football cards and their soccer cards and sponsor their teams and do all that other kind of stuff, we can't do it anymore. So we don't have the sales. We need the sales and the employees back. We are the largest job creator, the hospitality industry in the state of New Jersey. Give us a chance. Give us an opportunity. We've submitted a great plan. We have to open our doors. Also, the people are breaking. Not only employees, the managers, the owners, but the customers. because again, it's hot outside. It's cold outside. They said about the weather. Everybody's getting confused. People don't, it's just really crazy out there right now, but we need to have some guidance and some rules, and we need to get open, and we need to have a successful second opening without having a wrench thrown in our spoke and we flipped over the handlebars and landed on our face and broke our nose. So please let us open.
Thank you, Bob. And lastly, before we turn over to Q&A, we're going to talk to Tom D'Antone from Florentine Gardens. Tom?
Thank you. Mary Lou, I definitely want to thank you because you've been working tirelessly to help the cause, and we really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Back on March 14th, we hosted our last wedding at the estate of Florentine Gardens. And from that moment on, it's been an absolute roller coaster. Dealing with well over 150 brides that we've had to reschedule them. Hours and hours of working with couples to try to find dates that work. And obviously the wedding industry, different than restaurants, we book contracts out with clients even 2 years out. So coming into this pandemic, we had about 190 weddings already on the books for 2020 and well over 125 weddings in 2021. So to talk about a challenge navigating through waters that we've never seen before and trying to give answers to questions that we absolutely have no answers has been extremely challenging. I've been in business 31 years. I've seen 9/11, I've seen recessions, other viruses. Nothing have we ever faced what we're facing right now. We are a mom and pop business. Unfortunately, people walk into our venues and they see the large chandeliers and the moldings, and they think we're big business. We're not. It's myself, my 3 children work it, people that have been with me 20, 30 years. So the effect in the wedding industry, we are the hub and spoke. So when we're not working, the photographer, the videographer, the transportation, the hotel rooms, the travel, honeymoons, all of this is being affected. The supply chain. The other day I heard one of our full line distributors, they furloughed 50 salespeople. That may not seem like a lot of people, but those 50 probably generate anywhere between $10 to $50 million a year in sales, each salesperson. I don't know when we open up again what the supply chain situation is going to be, how we're going to be impacted with pricing. We on our own have gone off and did stuff that we haven't gotten guidance, but we're trying to figure it out. We've installed all types of plexiglass systems throughout our buffet stations. We've opened up our HVAC units to allow at least 50% fresh air coming in from the outside. We installed a ionization system so we can disinfect the entire building once you turn on the system and keep it running. It'll keep the air quality at its best possible. We also have been doing contact tracing probably 100 years in this industry. We just didn't know it was called contact tracing. Every person that walks through our building, we have names, we have seating charts, where they're seated, who's serving them. So to talk about opening up safety, as far as safety, I think we can do a tremendous job to control the spread of this disease. We've also been fortunate enough, we've installed about 16,000 square feet of outdoor tenting, hopefully to try to accommodate some of our clients, September, October, November, and December, even asking our clients in November and December to move up sooner so we can facilitate their job. So it's been tough. And unfortunately, without getting an answer, this is going to affect 2021 and possibly the first quarter of 2022. Thank you.
Tom, thank you. Before I turn up to Q&A, again, I just wanted to remind you that we will, for members of the press that may have tuned in, just go to the Q&A or raise your hand and your question will be asked, and just make sure you identify yourself, the name of the publication, and who your question is for. And again, just to remind you that the association will be starting our 30-day I Serve New Jersey or I Serve Jersey campaign, where we will be having videos through social media for members to talk about the impact that this has had, not just on themselves, but also on their employees. We will host a series of meetings around the state and we invite our elected officials to join us to listen in. And certainly we always welcome the governor to join us because as we know that obviously, he is making those tough decisions, and we certainly want to be part of the process with him and let him, ask us questions about how well we do sanitation and why we are such a safe industry. And so just, again, thank you all for being here. This will not be the last time that you hear from us. So look for us over the next 30 to possibly 60 days. I see we have one question. This is Catherine Lonergan from Politico. Have you spoken to the governor's office and have they indicated to whether they will sign the bill allocating CARES Act funding? Is it enough money? More money is needed. So thank you, Catherine. We actually did request a direct sit down with the governor back in early June. Unfortunately, we were told last week that the governor will not be able to meet with us. I am in contact with his office, but we certainly had hoped for him to sit down with a larger group of members, not just for us to ask him about what the plans were, but for him to get that comfort level with us, because, you know, it's like a game of telephone. You know, I know the governor eats out a lot, but does he have a really in-depth understanding about what goes on behind the scenes and what the restaurants do to be safe? And we wanted to have that two-way communication directly with him, but unfortunately we were told his schedule did not permit. So that was unfortunate. The CARES money, I think the 30 million for the restaurants that kind of incurred that false start, that's a good, that's a beginning, but nowhere will it help the 25,000 restaurants in their state or the 350,000 employees that we have. We certainly know that small business, whether it's hospitality, retail, that is the backbone of this state. We have the most diverse types of restaurants, and we want to keep that. We want to keep those small, independent, family-owned restaurants. So that CARES money should go in the form of grants to the small business community, because that will help keep New Jersey residents employed. Nancy, I'd like to encourage our audience to get active on lobbying to help our restaurant community. What can you recommend consumers and customers do to push the elected officials to reopen? Is there anything specific, one person they should email? Well, thank you, Nancy, Edible New Jersey. Thank you. Obviously, you know, by and large, the residents of the state have been certainly supportive, and they've been tipping well, and I continue to do that. But reach out to the governor's office, because at this point, it really is his decision. But if your local officials could reach out, because we are looking at fall. And, you know, I just want to go because I keep, some people say I'm not comfortable going back inside and dine, and that's okay. Don't, you know, if you're comfortable with outdoors or you're comfortable doing takeout and delivery, everyone has to do what they feel is right for them. But again, the way people are going into places that are far less sanitary than restaurants. So talk to your elected official, pick up the phone, call the governor's office, tweet at the governor. I know he's not going to be happy with me saying that, but this is a democracy, and we have a voice, and I encourage all our employees and customers to do what you can just to help us. We appreciate that. Dino, hi Dino from 101.5. Since July 2nd date was pulled, has the industry received any timetable, or at least whether indoor dining would be looked at again? No, we haven't. You know, I've been in communication with the governor's office, like I said, not the governor, but the governor's office, and I do ask it, and, you know, I have to say I do get a response, not the response I want, but I have not heard anything. So I hope that will change, especially as we're already, you know, into August. I don't know if there's one other question, a couple others. Yep. What would you make of the emergent scientific consensus that COVID-19 is spread primarily through air, not surface transmission? Does that impact your safe strategies? Certainly, yeah. I mean, you know, that's one of the things we talked about, ventilation. And I had someone use a great example. When you walk into a restaurant or a banquet hall for that matter, and I don't know if it was Tom that told me or if it was one of our other venues, you don't get the hotel lobby. You don't have those smells, right? Because of the way the ventilation works in most restaurants, hotels and banquet halls. They have such a great ventilation system, and there's So it's recirculated air all the time. So you don't get the cooking odors or just odors of people, when you go into a wedding and people are dancing, pre-COVID, right? You never had those smells. It always smelled really good because of the great ventilation that we have. But that to be said, I think you have to keep the wiping, the sanitizing. I mean, all of those things, mask wearing when you're not eating and drinking, social distancing, every little thing that we can do, we are supportive of. And we can do it. Just give us a chance to do it, is what we're saying. Second part of your question, how much money did you lose on the false start and what were those costs? I don't have specific numbers as far as what restaurants did. I mean, it was huge, right? So I'm sure some of these people can talk. I can ask maybe some of them to chime in. I'll ask maybe Marilyn or if anyone else, or Jeannie, Bob. 3 things that they probably incurred. One was bringing food and supplies in. Second was training their employees to the new standard of operating. And number 3, getting their restaurant sanitized. So it could be in the tens of thousands of dollars. And especially those that weren't open at all, they didn't have outdoor dining. So they were really bringing everything in fresh. So those that are on busy roads or don't have parking lots, they were starting from scratch. So they spent significant money. But Marilyn, do you have any numbers? I mean, you do a little bit of outdoor dining.
Yeah, we're compiling a list because there's a grant for Monmouth County right now that opened this morning of all our costs for reopening. So not only did we have increased labor costs because we had to bring more people on, increased sanitation, cleaning crews coming in, we put UV lighting in Langosta to help with the contact. And then you have all the other costs that everybody's talking about. We printed menus. So we printed 10,000 menus in anticipation of our venues reopening that are still sitting in boxes. So, there's all kinds of different costs depending on where you are and what you had before and what you had going forward. Now we've shifted and done more outdoor dining costs, more tents. We had to do a concrete pad to create a new area. The costs are just fluctuating up and down. And as Mary Lou said, without specific protocol going forward of timelines, we're all living in the dark. So every day is a new cost incurred. When I look back at the costs that I've spent, I wish I had that $25,000, $30,000 in the bank right now to get me through another month of payroll.
Okay. Bob, do you want to talk about that for a second?
No, I think she just pretty much covered it completely. I mean, the sad thing was, like you said, is that I could speak for a few of my friends down here, fellow restaurateurs that were never open for outdoor dining or did to go, or they couldn't do it because of just their location, wherever they've been. And then they amped up and brought everybody in and did employee orientations. You did all the new rules that we have going on through this pandemic, trained everybody, retrained everybody, 7 to 10 days of training and paying all this money out. And then everybody had the rug pulled out from underneath them. I hope that some of those places are going to reopen. I don't see that happening. I really do. It's sad. Now the money, like she said, we're spending on average, it's, these tents, they aren't cheap. So we need to get inside. We need to have a plan, and we need to have a chat and get the rules from the governor so we can do the stuff the right way. So we don't have a failed second start is what needs to happen.
Thank you. We have a question. As Tom D'Antone indicated, contract tracing is a part of every wedding special event because there is a guest list. In the time of the coronavirus, is there a specific system where clients are in touch with venues so that anyone were to get sick, that a successful, effective contract tracing program would be implemented right away? And before I turn it over to Tom for a second, I will say we have been working with a vendor specifically to really enhance that. But Tom, do you want to take that?
Sure. So we have a software called Venue X, and the reason why it's called Venue X is that basically every venue can brand it their own name. So ours is our own app. So we've been using that for 2 years to replace the paper trail. So we basically have every client, the client will provide us with a seating chart. So we know the names, the phone numbers, the addresses. We know where they're seated. We also know all the ancillary staff that's coming in, entertainment, florist, videographer, photographer. We know basically everybody that's in the building, so we can trace back right to our contract for the date of that event, who was there, who was serving, and who was working. Not many industries can say that.
Great, thank you. And then health officials continue to say eating indoors is a possibility for a major spread because masks have to be removed to eat. How can you tell people they will eat safely indoors when health officials say it's not possible to do it safely? Well, if you're sitting with the people that you come with, the tables are socially distanced. You do put your mask back on when you are walking to the bathroom or inside, and there is, good ventilation in the restaurant. Yes, it is. The CDC has said that there is no evidence to prove that restaurants are super spreaders. So I do think that if and we're not calling for 100% capacity. We are trying to be reasonable, smart, safe, but back to our point earlier, my comment earlier on, people are socializing and they're not doing it safely. They're doing it in these indoor house parties. It's exactly what the governor said. So we need to allow them to do it in places that do have safe operations, which is obviously our restaurants and hotels. Esther from the Bergen Record. Good morning, Esther. How do you estimate 30% closure? How do you figure that out? That number came from the National Restaurant Association. They're our national partner, and they work with states around the country on helping us gather statistical information like that. So, and also, Esther, are you calling for any indoor dining or are you calling for any indoor dining or 25% capacity? Right now, we're calling for 25%, and hopefully, like we've seen in Connecticut, where they've had 25% and now they're up to 50% without a huge increase. And that's because there's controls in other areas. You can't just keep hanging your hat on that fact that it's restaurants. When there's other things going on, mass transit, and, again, God bless going to church, but singing in church. I mean, there's other activities that are creating this RT rate. You can't blame this on restaurants. But if people will be allowed to go to a restaurant in a safe way, that's not going to contribute. So, what it will do is get people back to work. It will get the economy going. It will help the tax rate and the other community organizations that we support. Gabby, Mary Lou, have you had direct conversation with the governor about indoor dining? What came of it? Gabby, thank you. No, we've asked for a meeting with the governor back in early June. And we were told last week that his schedule doesn't permit. So that was disappointing. Just to clarify, the estimate that 30% of restaurants would close, is that specifically in New Jersey, not nationwide, correct? Yes, it's just New Jersey. Because obviously we see some things going on, other states, different metrics. So that is just New Jersey. And typically that is small independent restaurants that don't have the same access to capital, cash and capital that perhaps some of the larger establishments do. So that's why the CARES funding will certainly be important to those smaller businesses. And I always like to correct that, often people are saying a large business is any business with 50 employees or more. Well, that's not accurate, because for a restaurant to operate and say generate $1 million, they need far more than 50 people. But a technology company can make $5 million with 10 people. We are very labor intensive. So even though we may employ 50, 100 people, we're still small business. So really quantifying what small business by the number of employees is not a great way to do it. I am going to go to the chat. Why do you think governor is seemingly resistant to open indoor dining? I mean, that's a good question. I wouldn't want to speak on behalf of the governor. I'm sure he has his reasons. So I'm going to go to the chat. Again, bear with me. I'm sorry, chat. I just want to make sure I'm not. I think that is in chat. I'm sorry. I'm talking to Q&A, 6. Gabby has another question. Okay. Even though indoor dining is allowed in Pennsylvania and New York, it's still not allowed in population centers like New York City and Philly. So how can we resume with such a highly densely populated state? Well, I mean, Connecticut is densely populated too. So I think that, you know, again, we can do it safely. You know, there's areas of our state that have very little cases. I mean, even in the densely populated cases, like where we saw where the rate was up, you know, it's come down. But again, you're just saying, you know, again, you're just using the fact that for restaurants to reopen, it's not safe. But there's everything else is opening but restaurants. The RT rate is going up. Can't blame that on restaurants. What this is the house party. So put some controls in there instead of just, and allow people to go to a restaurant to celebrate safely than into an indoor dining. You know, I mean, we're allowing people to ride shoulder to shoulder on mass transit. So again, it's this thing that restaurants are unsafe. So other stuff is opening, we should be too, at the same rate and in a safe way. So again, I think, is there any Q&A? I'm looking back at the Q&A and I apologize if I'm not seeing your question. Is there other questions? It's just from the press. I'm not, you can come here. But that, yes, but those are press questions. What? Okay, hold on. Bear with me 1 minute. Bear with me 1 minute. I'm just going to get this question. I'm sorry, I was on mute. Can NJRHA provide a list of legislators who are who are for inside dining and those against, so we can focus on changing minds? That's from a reporter down in South Jersey. Yes, certainly, and that's what the 30-day campaign will be as we move these meetings around the state and invite our elected officials to hear from members in their district and employees. Again, and let them hear about our safe protocols. So certainly we can do that. Let me just see. Eric, for venues that are offering outdoor weddings currently, are couples choosing to get married and celebrate now within the New Jersey guidelines, or are they opting to postpone to 2021? That's from njwedding.com. Jeannie or Tom, do you want to take that question?
Yes, Eric, we are cautiously optimistic, but we are finding the concerns that people were having back in April, May, and June about face covering. That conversation now has ended. Everybody understands if they walk into the building for using, obviously, restrooms or whatever, they could live with those guidelines. But I would say 50% of our couples are now contemplating moving their date up and hosting it while we can still do it on the outside.
Jeannie, you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I agree with Tom. Obviously, I think, people do understand that there's going to be restrictions in place. And I think more than anything, they understand that those restrictions are to keep their guests feeling comfortable and safe, and they're fine with it. However, it's not going to save the industry because not everyone is looking to host their event outside. So, being able to give couples an option is what any of us who could offer that as an option are.
Okay, thank you. The 30-day campaign, can I talk about that again? Certainly. So we are going to be hosting a 30-day campaign. It may go longer with that, called I Serve Jersey. This will include short videos of restaurateurs and their experiences and challenges during the shutdown. We were also going to organize a series of meetings around the state with elected officials and anyone who wants to join us to hear the struggles of the industry and their employees. Carl from the Patch Media, has the industry sensed any pushback from the public with complying with these measures? Early on, and Bob Wagner told me a story of that he was getting some pushback on masks, and we are hearing that because before the governor, and we encouraged the governor for the statewide mask mandate because people were coming in not wanting to wear their masks, and we were policing it, and it was creating some challenges for our staff. I think as time goes on, hopefully everybody is on board with wearing masks when you're not seated. But Bob, is there a story you have about that?
Yes, just real quick. I mean, it's still, obviously, it's now it's the small majority, small percent, like 10%, that still obviously don't want to wear a mask or don't want to comply with the rules. And that's another expense that we all burden, is now we have extra employees. We got to hire extra people, if we could get them, to go around and be sanitation police. And they go around, they clean tables and wipe chairs and touch door handles or wipe door handles. And then we tell people when they get up, you got to put your mask on. And some people just don't even, they walk to the door of the restaurant and they argue with an 18, 19, 20-year-old hostess and yell at them. And they're like, you got to put your mask on and walk to your table. And for some reason, there's just a small percent of people out there that are just, I don't think they have TVs in their house. I really don't. But they have to understand these are the rules. We follow them. Restaurants are the safest place to go as far as I'm concerned. Our sanitation protocols are the best, but we just need that few people that are still out there trying to fight this got to understand this is the new way of going out for the future. So they got to deal with it.
Yeah. And question, again, someone who I guess joined late, have we resubmitted a plan to the governor's office? We did early on, we did our safe dining plan, safe celebration plan. Safe dining was for restaurants, safe celebration was for the wedding and banquet venues. We submitted that to the governor's office back in May, and then, listening to what some of his concerns were about kind of congregating and what we were seeing at the shore, we went back and made changes to that to address what his concerns were. So that would be things like we included no bar seating and then having to be seated while eating and drinking. So, and a question, if the restaurant employee tests positive, is it required they close or sanitize it, or is it up to the individual restaurant owner? Marilyn, I know that you were having some questions with this. Do you want to take this, what the protocol is? I mean, we certainly report it to OSHA. The restaurants typically, I think it's kind of up to them, but there is the protocol that we close and sanitize. But did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we had one employee test positive a couple weeks ago. So the health department's notified immediately when you test positive, and we notified all the staff. We had some employees that chose not to come to work until they felt comfortable and got tested. We gave test sites to everybody to go get tested. Asbury created a free testing twice a week that's ongoing, as well as all of the local CVS's and Rite Aids. The problem with testing right now is that unless you're doing the Rutgers fast track test, you're not getting those results for 7 to 12 days. So the protocol is if you're asymptomatic, you can come back to work in 10 days. If you contract and show symptoms, it's 14 days quarantine. You do not have to shut down, but you do need to take the protocol with your staff. One of the problems of all of this is the fear factor that's happening, and the fact that people get unnecessarily crazed about it. The one employee that tested for us hadn't worked with anybody. He was off the week prior, and he does a position that he comes in contact with very minimal people. So he really only came in contact with 2 staff members within a 14-day period, and those people were 7 days prior to him getting tested. And then he got a negative test 5 days later. So what I'm trying to say is that this creates this heightened fear in the employees and the public about the actual protocol and what is happening with the disease or the virus. And honestly, nobody really knows what's happening because it's changing daily with new information. This is something new to all of us. What we don't talk about, and I want to bring it up before I close out, is that we don't talk about building your immunity and keeping your employees informed and conscious about the things we need to do as human beings to prevent a virus from killing us. The medium area right now that this virus is affecting are 20 to 35-year-olds, the people who are partying, who are going out. Every hospital worker, physician that I've talked to said those are the cases that they're seeing right now. This is not being caused by restaurants. This is being caused by public partying and a demographic of people who don't take it seriously. But you also need to take seriously that you need to be strong. Your immune system needs to be uncompromised. And if you feel compromised, don't go out. If you take care of yourself and you get this, you're going to get through it. Just my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. And then do you think Governor Murphy is wrong to say that indoor dining is driving that higher rate of transition in other states? Yes, because I look at some of my neighboring states, and it's really, you can't say that, right? I mean, again, I keep going to Connecticut, but you know, other things are opened. So you can't keep hanging your hat on restaurants. Our RT rate is going up slightly here, and we don't have indoor dining. So it's showing you that there are other activities are causing that. So again, perhaps, you know, I live over by the beach area. There's a lot of people here, and, you know, and again, there's nowhere for them to go. So we have to allow them to go to places that are safe and sanitary. But it's not, indoor dining is not creating that. You know, there was the concern about the bars, which is why, you know, the large bars, and, you know, we did address that in our updated plan. But it's the other things. It is the close contact. It's, you know, other things that are not indoor dining. So with that, I don't believe there's any other questions. If to the members of the press, the participants in today's press conference, their comments will be available to you if you just contact Karen Geisel or Marshall from MWW. We'll have those comments available to you. And if you have any questions, as usual, you all know where to find me. I do appreciate your time today. I want to thank our panelists, Marilyn Schlossbeck of Langosta Lounge and this year's chairwoman of the association, Gina Cretella of Landmark Hospitality, Tom D'Antone of Florentine Gardens, Bob Wagner of Otts and Braddock's. Am I missing anyone else? I think that's it. And my team, I want to thank my team for helping us put together. Hopefully, we've managed this without too many technical difficulties, but we look forward to seeing you soon. So thank you all.